the Ministry of Health then said, let's have a small department within the ministry to deal with HIV. It was only a small department. But over time, it was found that it's not tenable to confine it to the ministry. So we had to have a national response which was multi-sectoral. And that was important, because then it was multi-sectoral approach, still under the Ministry of Health, but now on its own as the National AIDS Council. There was a lot of talk about whether it should not go to the President's office and not in the Ministry of Health. The argument for that being that the President's office is overall and everybody doesn't feel like, you are not a ministry that invites another ministry, but the President's office can invite anybody. But here in this country, we felt we needed to be driven, to drive it, to drive the HIV response. So it remained with the Ministry of Health and Child Care, and then we developed this principle, or these principles, three principles that we developed, that the most important ones were, number one, it was prevention. And I said it again that side. Number two, it was prevention. Number three is prevention. So the National AIDS Council became really pivotal in promoting those three strategies of prevention. And then eventually, of course, like you rightly said, 2000, we then decided funding because of our sanctions that we were under. And we could see that within the region, we were getting $12 per capita, whereas the region around us was getting an average of $132 per capita. So we really felt we needed to do something here, and we needed to start our own fund. And through an act of parliament, it must be an act of parliament. Once it's not an act of parliament, then it becomes very debatable. It's an act of parliament, then it makes it circumscribed. It can now have its own monies, it can now manage itself and answer through the Ministry of Health in Parliament through that act. So we formed that. But immediately after that, the main drivers were the people living with HIV, the Zimbabwe National Network of People Living with HIV. They felt they should benefit first from that money. And we started by agreeing with them, and we started what we call support groups. And they were given a lot of projects to do, these support groups. But it became untenable because the accounting was now very difficult. You find this group has got this money, but the accounting was very difficult. So we decided to change. And then we now strengthened our decentralized structures from the National AIDS Council, provincial, district, ward, into the family. So we decentralized, and then we used that now, those structures, as the platforms to which we can finance any projects that are under us. And that has worked very well. But we then said, with the National AIDS Council, when we started with the AIDS levy, we said 50% of whatever is collected should go towards prevention, and 50% goes to other areas. And this has somehow been maintained, although it has been eaten into a little bit more. But that was the original cabinet instruction, that 50%. We articulated that in cabinet, that we want to make sure prevention prevails. So now, in terms of prevention, which the National AIDS Council does well, they now worked with the chiefs. They now worked with the civil society, now worked with individual ministries, business sector. There's a business council on HIV. It became then the churches, the traditional leaders and healers. So it became a movement, a real movement driven by the National AIDS Council under the leadership of the Ministry of Health and Child Care. And that worked. Now, at first, there was a lot of, the elections are here every 5 years. And parties would say, no, I think you're using this money to promote ZANU-PF from the National AIDS Council. And we had to come out, I had to come out very strongly, that HIV is non-partisan. It's not ZANU-PF, it's not MDC, it's not whatever. It's HIV. Anybody can be affected. So we made sure that if you isolate so and so because they are a certain party, then they are the focus of problems. So we needed to include everybody, including when it came to nutrition, food distribution, because that was very key when it mattered with our chiefs. They formed what you called Zunderamambo, which was the king's granary, where every chief had to, after harvest, they put this into a granary and then identify families that are poor within that community and who are HIV positive. So that has worked well to work with the chiefs in that regard. So in short, I know that you're going to see all these people, and these are the real